The void was a canvas of infinite black, and the shipyard was a stain of light upon it. Commander Elias Vance stood on the observation deck of the Odyssey, his breath fogging the viewport. Below, the skeletal arms of the orbital drydock stretched toward the darkness, cradling the Hope's End, a vessel that was more machine than man. It was humanity's last, desperate gambit. The tunnelers, those impossible leviathans that had burrowed through the crust of a dozen worlds, were coming. They didn't roar. They didn't threaten. They simply were, a geological force of teeth and nightmare that consumed worlds from the inside out. Vance had seen them tear apart a moon once, a silent, grinding spectacle of annihilation. The alien fleets had fought with elegant, precise weaponry, their tactics honed over millennia. Humanity had fought with brute force, with jury-rigged fusion warheads and crews who volunteered for suicide missions with a disturbing cheerfulness. It was a strategy born of desperation, but the tunnelers, for all their cosmic scale, seemed to lack a counter for it. They understood sacrifice, but not stupidity. They couldn't comprehend why a species would throw away its own existence for a fleeting chance at victory. Chief Engineer Eris Thorne's hands were slick with grease and sweat as he crawled through the maintenance conduit of the Hope's End. The ship's AI, a cold, logical entity named Janus, guided him through the labyrinth of conduits with an unnerving calm. The primary containment field is destabilizing, Eris. You have 90 seconds before the core breaches. Thorne grunted, his suit's servos whining in protest. He wasn't a soldier. He was a man who liked fixing things, who found peace in the hum of a perfectly calibrated engine. But the core of the Hope's End wasn't an engine. It was a singularity, a captured black hole the size of a marble, contained by fields of pure mathematics and a power source that could boil an ocean. The tunnelers were an hour away from reaching the station's primary habitat ring. The plan was simple, in a way that only humans could make it simple: release the singularity. Not at the tunnelers, but at the station itself. The resulting gravitational implosion would crush the entire orbital yard, and everything in it, into a point of infinite density. It was a suicide bomb on a stellar scale. Thorne's job was to ensure the singularity didn't just wink out of existence. He had to manually override the failsafes to make sure the containment failed completely. He was the key in the lock, turning the final, irreversible turn. The first Tesserworm breached the station's outer hull not with a crash, but with a sigh. A vast, segmented body, each ring armored with chitinous plates that deflected energy weapons, oozed through the torn metal like warm butter. It was followed by another and another. They moved with a terrifying, languid grace, their many-limbed bodies undulating as they sought the station's power conduits. The automated defense turrets, designed to fight conventional fleets, spat streams of plasma that sizzled uselessly against the alien hide. The human soldiers fought back, but their rifles were pea shooters against a walking mountain. A young corporal, her face smudged with dirt and fear, emptied her entire magazine into the eye stalk of one creature. It didn't even flinch. It simply turned its head, a mountain of flesh and teeth, and consumed her in a single, wet gulp. The tunnelers didn't kill for sport. They consumed for fuel. They were a force of nature, and humanity was a forest fire in their path. They would extinguish it, methodically, patiently. They had all the time in the universe. The humans did not. Commander Vance watched the tactical display, the icons of the tunnelers multiplying like a plague of locusts. The Hope's End was ready. Thorne had confirmed it. All that remained was the order. The alien fleet, a scattering of elegant, crystalline vessels, had already fled. They had analyzed the human strategy, the willingness to sacrifice their own people and their own world, and had deemed it irrational. They had retreated to a safe distance to observe. They were scientists studying a fascinating, albeit doomed, phenomenon. Vance felt a strange sense of pity for them. They were so advanced, so powerful, and yet they were blind. They saw a species throwing itself into a volcano and called it madness. Vance saw a species refusing to lie down and die. He opened the channel to the entire station. "This is Commander Vance." His voice was steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside him. "To the crew of the Hope's End, and to every soul left on this station, we will not be remembered for our technology or our ships. We will be remembered for this. For the simple, stupid, magnificent fact that we refuse to be erased. Execute protocol, Omega. In the final second, Eris Thorn didn't feel fear. He felt a profound, overwhelming peace. He looked at the small, handheld device in his hand, the one that would sever the final containment cable. It was a red button, a child's toy that would unmake a star. He thought of his wife, of the quiet life they had planned, a life that now existed only in memory. He thought of the soldiers fighting and dying in the corridors, of the children in the habitat ring who would never know the sun. He thought of the tunnelers, their alien minds incapable of understanding the choice he was making. He wasn't dying for humanity. He was dying for an idea. The idea that existence, no matter how brief or painful, was preferable to the cold, silent void of non-existence. He pressed the button. The world dissolved into light and gravity, a silent symphony of annihilation that stretched across the void. The tunnelers, sensing the catastrophic shift in space-time, recoiled. They could not comprehend the weapon, only its effect. A weapon that consumed its wielder. A weapon that was, itself, the sacrifice. They retreated, not in defeat, but in confusion, slithering back into the dark from which they came. They had won every battle, but in the end, they could not win a war against a species that loved life so much. They were willing to become death itself to protect it.